Thank you so much, and you'll soon find out what I'm talking about, but you already read the title. Oh well, roll the intro. Thank you so much for joining in. My name is Joaquim Gonsalves, and a huge shout out to Sony for doing what they've been doing all these years. And I mean, seriously, it's the kind of the kind of activity that's happening in the industry right now. It's so important because, as we all know, photography is moving into the smartphone space. As some of you may be knowing, the industry as a whole has been declining. But the fact that Sony came out with the mirrorless, and they've been doing it so hard and so strong and so well, to be frank, that we have the two biggest names in the industry who are finally in and giving it their best. So thank you so much, Sony. A huge shout out to you guys for doing what you've done, and probably without your pioneering spirit, we would not have had the impressive activity that we're having right now, which in turn gives a boost to the photography industry, at least when it comes to equipment. And definitely we're going to see a lot more people interested in this industry and in the equipment. I'm sure of that. So thank you once again for joining, and I think the video every 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks is kind of something that could work out for me. But the very fact that you're watching this, it kind of was fate, because I really wanted to make this video since the last few days, especially since the Canon EOS R was out. And I was actually supposed to have a second day of shoot today for a pre-wedding project that I'm doing along with my team. So the shoot for today got cancelled, so that's why I'm able to shoot this, and I'm actually going to have a very busy week these next few days, because it's a continuous shoot of 6 days. We've already finished one, so 7 days total. But yeah, so that's what's going on. The last 2 videos that I put out, what I was talking about in a very light-hearted manner was about 5 reasons why to switch from Nikon to Canon or Canon to Nikon, and I did not talk about Sony. Well, I just wanted to, like I said, capitalize on the marketing hype. The last one was talking about 5 reasons not to switch from Nikon to Canon, and although it was just me joking around, and there was of course some gravity to the points that I put across, but Canon has actually gone ahead and cemented one of the reasons that I had trouble with. So that's pretty interesting. I guess Canon is somewhat, or maybe the universe is kind of telling me, I don't know. But there was one reason I was talking about is crop glass. Now, if any of you Canon full frame users are out there, you probably know that native Canon crop glass, which is the EFS as they've branded them, cannot be physically mounted onto a Canon full frame body, at least not on the DSLRs. And that's obviously, I don't know the exact reason for that, and I'm not going to guess anything, but pretty much most of you will probably be aware about it. So I was kind of struggling with making a strong point there in the last video, but they've gone ahead and proved me right. So they have those 3 amazing adapters, which I'm sure a lot of you are probably aware about, and you can you can finally mount Canon EFS glass onto a full frame Canon body, and it's going to do an automatic crop, which is something that I always appreciated about Nikon and Sony, as in when I got to know about Sony. But yes, of course, you'll lose some resolution off of that sensor. I do understand that, but it's just that glass is very expensive, and if you have something great already with you, why not be able to use it, right? But I was of course interested in mirrorless because there's a huge number of advantages to that body design, as most of us will know. Number one, which I really like, is the fact that you almost eliminate having to micro adjust your lenses, which is something that I even though I have Sigma art glass with me and some others, it's really a pain, to be frank. And if I had a lot of time, and maybe if I was I wouldn't mind getting myself into it and experimenting, because I like to tinker, but it's a pain. So from what I know, mirrorless almost eliminates having to adjust for micro adjustments when it comes to autofocus. And number two is the EVF. I mean, the whole thing about the EVF is you can actually see your composition and exposure. Sorry, not composition, but you can see your exposure live. So that's just brilliant when it comes to photography. That's what kept me interested in mirrorless, and the fact that Canon is finally out with one, I'm a little bit more serious about getting into full frame and full frame mirrorless. So I'm really actually quite happy that it did not make the jump to full frame until now, and probably won't be making that jump anytime soon, and I'll touch upon that fact a little later. What I first want to address is most of us, or at least most of the people online, obviously there are two camps. There are people who are for and against already, and both camps are very well aware about the shortcomings of the new Canon EOS R. As we all know, there's no single camera body which is absolutely perfect. Like you could consider the Nikon D850, but then it doesn't have an EVF, so you can't really, there's nothing out there which is absolutely perfect. Maybe the Sony A7 III, but not really. The ergonomics, not my cup of tea actually. But what people seem to be ignoring, or people don't seem to have grasped just yet, even I took a long time to finally come up with a video post the Canon EOS R launch. I wanted to check out everyone else's videos. In fact, the last few days I've been just binge watching all Canon EOS R videos and reviews. I've been reading. So what I've come to understand, what I feel they're doing is they've not launched the EOS R as a competitive body, or as a body against the competition. What they've actually done is what Nikon is also done, which is trying to keep their existing customer base with them. So what Canon has done is they've given you an option of not just a cheaper 5D Mark IV with a mirrorless and an EVF and a host of other new features, but they've also given you a better 6D Mark II. You could call this body as the 6D Mark III mirrorless, or the 6D mirrorless. That's the way I look at the EOS R, because I feel it's definitely the way they've positioned it, and even if you go price wise. So it's not just an entry level mirrorless, but it's actually a better 6D, which also now makes so much more sense as to why the 6D Mark II had had weaker features as compared to the 6D Mark I. It had some additional qualities, but now I guess it makes sense. So that's the way you should look at it. If you're a Canon user and you have Canon glass with you, that's the way they've positioned it. Now if you're looking for something competitive, considering the price, yes, if you have existing Canon glass and you'd like to have the Canon EOS R, or consider buying it, but then again there's also something cheaper with a lot more features. Like for example, if I had to consider picking up the A7 III, now sure, I could use the Metabones and other adapters like a Sigma MC11 and use my Canon glass with it, and then maybe purchase used Canon full frame glass and get that gorgeous full frame 4K. But then eventually I would definitely consider buying into Sony native glass, right? Because who wants to have an adapter, especially a dumb adapter that just mounts the glass onto the other body? Well, Canon has addressed that fact, if you ask me, and they've launched those two amazing adapters along with the dummy. That is something that is really very useful. This is also something that now interests me much more, because I can finally use just one filter for video with absolutely any EF or EFS glass that's around. And that's what I feel about it. I feel that there is really some exciting times up ahead for us, especially in this industry, and we're really looking forward to what the next innovation is going to be. And it's really pretty cool to see what's coming out, and I must congratulate Canon for doing something out of the box when it comes to the controls, and basically doing something that no one else has done. So kudos for the adapters, kudos for trying to get a new interface for controlling the camera, which of course is, I mean, the jury is out on how useful that's going to be. But like for example, if I had to get a Canon EOS R, I would most likely get the control ring adapter, because I don't think I can afford any of the RF glass anytime soon. It already sounds like I'm going to pick one up, but anyway, the way I would use that is I would keep the control ring configured to the ISO, and I would keep the back dial for aperture, just like the way I use my aperture dial right now on Canon. It's the one at the bottom, Right, so I would keep this one just as it is for the shutter. I'll keep this is what I use for my aperture currently on the 7D Mark II and my 80D. So I would keep the back dial, which is about here. I would keep that for aperture, and I would use the control ring for ISO because that's going to be pretty cool, especially while doing photography. And there are going to be a few people complaining as to why must I spend to get the control ring declicked when I want to shoot video. Well, I think what we're forgetting is that Canon does touchscreen incredibly well, and if you ask me, I would definitely not want to use any physical controls on a camera body if I want to change any setting whilst it is recording. Whilst it is recording. So if you've used any touchscreen camera from Canon, it just works. It just works. I mean, if you're used to a smartphone, you'll definitely get used to it very soon. I mean, I'm so used to my touchscreen on the 80D right now that I find myself touching the menu even on my 7D. But that's what it's going to be. If you pick this body up, don't worry about having to spend for declicking that ring. You could always reconfigure, and you have the option to keep your video customization separate from the photo customization. So definitely you could use that. And I don't think you need to spend on declicking the control ring. You just use the touchscreen. So well, that's what I think about that. But I mean, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but it's really, I'm really happy that I'm with Canon. So anyway, I'm just happy I managed to get this out to you, and thank you so much for joining in on this video. Wish me luck. It's going to be a very busy week for the pre-wedding shoot, so I hope I can do a great job with it, and I hope I can live up to the expectations of my team. And I'll try my best to get some BTS stuff out onto my social media. So please do follow my links in the description and anywhere over here. And that's about it. Please do give me your ideas and suggestions on where I can improve my content, and that's about it. Thank you once again for joining.